mustakabali wa baadaye. Tufanye kazi pamoja na tukue pamoja. Kuimarisha Kenya ni jukumu la Farm Kenya.
Welcome to this today's edition of the Farm Kenya show. My name is Peter Okaba, and today we are diving deep into a topic that's driving the future of farming in this country, and indeed the future of agriculture right across the world, and that is the topic of contract farming. Now today we are looking at what exactly contract farming is, why it is important, why is it a game changer, and what you need to know about it before jumping right in. Of course, the effect has been that for many farmers in the past, they have been engaging in agriculture from a point of subsistence farming and that sort of thing. And with the change to, well, farming as a business, where do you find a market? What are you going to grow? Who is going to be your major market? Where are you going to get your technology? So many questions, so many different answers. We want to get into that today and give you a well-rounded perspective on contract farming and its importance in today's farming landscape. Now, the reason we are doing this is, of course, as I pointed out, the fact that many farmers are trying to transition to farming as a business. Of course, that then necessitating a conversation around the concept itself and the different stakeholders, and that being to put together in an upcoming conference that we will talk about later on in the show. But to introduce my guest to discuss that now, Noah Nesiali is the visionary CEO and founder of a Farmers Agri-Tech and, well, Farmers Agri-Tech and Leadership Center. Thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us. No,
thank you.
You have been in this space,
yes,
as an expert from the technical perspective for many years before transitioning to this. Talk to us about what you did and what makes you especially qualified to give us this perspective.
I mean, first of all, thank you for having me. First of all, this is my 17th year as a farmer.
Yes.
And I started off as a contract farmer. Mm-hmm. In fact, when I was told that I'll be coming to talk about this, I said, okay, finally, there's something that we're going to discuss. Mm-hmm. But I think one of the things that qualifies me to be able to talk about this is, first of all, the challenges that I faced as a contract farmer. Both for export crops as well as local crops. Mm-hmm. I remember some time back, I was given a contract to plant 75,000 cabbages.
Wow.
And the person who gave me the contract did not show up.
Really?
So I was stuck with 75,000 cabbages.
Wow.
I was taking cabbages home until my wife tells me, you're going to make cabbage soup for you.
Yes.
I take to the market, but there are so many dynamics that I did not know then, that I know now. And because of that, I said I will continue sharing some of these experiences and also insights as we keep on learning in the industry.
So let's slow it down then and start from how did you get into contract farming?
So I started off farming just normal. So I said I'll farm, I'll take my produce to the market.
Yes.
So we have different types of contract farming. There's that one that a buyer tells you, grow, I'll come and pick and sell.
Yes.
And then there's that one that there's the written documentation. Yes. We have the government bodies, AFA, approving. Those days it used to be HCD.
Yes.
And then there's that one that you plant and just chance.
Yes.
So I had planted and chanced for quite some time. But when one day there's a lady I met in the market, in Roy Market, that time I was farming in Kamulu, told me, by the way, you have very good produce. I have an order to plant, to supply cabbages. Can you grow? She was like, okay, fine. She came to the farm. We looked into what was needed in terms of the farm, the structures, water source, and all that. And we signed a contract. I still have that contract 15 years later.
Wow.
And we agreed. So she supplied seeds for half the farm.
Yes.
And the rest I sourced for myself. All the other inputs were mine. And so I was very excited to do this.
Yes.
I remember that time I was telling my family that, by the way, in December we're going for a very good holiday.
Pesa ya cabbage.
Pesa ya cabbage.
Yes.
Because I was projecting to get around 2.1 million shillings. Yes. 70,000 cabbages times 30 shillings.
Wow.
But come October, when the harvest started, this lady came the first time and picked 800 cabbages. And then she said she will come for the next lot. So she did not come.
Okay.
And you know, cabbage is something very
perishable.
Yes, it starts bursting the farm, you know. It was raining, so I didn't know where to take the cabbages.
Yes.
But much later, I came to realize she was taking the cabbages to somewhere in Eldoret. And that time, one of the big farms, Delamere, was selling cabbages at 12 shillings.
Oh.
So there's no way she was coming from Eldoret all the way to Kamulu
To pick
and
up
take
30
back
shillings.
cabbage. Yes,
Yes.
you know, I didn't know then. But that was really frustrating.
So she simply reneged on your agreement
Yes.
and started sourcing somewhere else.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, but you had a contract. Why didn't you follow up and force those sorts of things?
Where?
Yeah.
You see, when you're starting farming,
Yes.
you're very ignorant.
Yes.
You're excited about the end product, the money that will come and all that. You don't look at these other things,
Yes.
you know. And that was not the only one. There's a time I also planted French beans. I remember I used to go to the airport to deliver French beans at 2 in the morning. And because the guy who's given me the contract, the exporter, was not coming to pick them.
Yes,
It was
you
quite
deliver.
far.
Yes.
And I cannot do anything with that. I mean, how many people eat French beans every day?
Yes.
But also the other challenge came in with the transportation costs. There's so much that came in. And so that's how I landed into contract farming.
Interesting then. Now we know that you got into this by burning your fingers and you've walked the talk. Having laid that foundation,
Yes.
let's then start at the definition of what contract farming should be. Because you've given us 3 different probable scenarios. So when people hear contract farming, what should they be thinking about?
Contract farming, farmers should think about it as a business contract,
Yes.
not a farming contract, where you have everything laid down. Whoever is giving you the contract, what are they expecting from you? And by the time they're approving, they've known that you can meet that. But also you as a farmer on your part, remember contract farming is both ways, you know.
Yes.
So that you need to also deliver what you've promised to deliver. But that documentation has to have witnesses. It has to have just a normal business contract.
Yes.
Where it is stipulated what exactly is the person giving you the contract going to give you to make sure that you can deliver. Is it seeds? Is it deposit? Is it fertilizer? Is it, you know, because the rest of the stuff you have probably already have the land and the water and the rest and stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. So it has to be taken very seriously, just like a contract, a normal business contract. Yes.
So, but you said something very critical when you asked where. So how do you ensure that this is enforceable and that you have some sort of recourse in case one of you then reneges or doesn't meet the end of the bargain?
So I'll answer that, and I touch on some very sensitive thing that has been going on in the industry.
Yes.
I think both exporters, the people who are giving you the contract, remember we have 2 types of contracts, for local produce as well as export produce. For the export, it's regulated by AFA,
Yes.
but it more or less favors the exporters than the farmers. Because at the point at which you're burning your fingers, you're so frustrated, you don't even know where to go. I mean, even if you know, it's more costly. You know, I've not heard of any farmer who's been successful to go and sue or put up
Arbitrate.
about such a thing. So I think one of the things is to make sure that you're safe on your end.
Yes.
Look at your margins. Look at how much you need to put in.
Yes.
So whatever you need to put in, make sure it has been covered at least probably 45 to 60%.
So with what you've said then, for many farmers, will contract farming even make sense if the power dynamic is such that you're looking at first an unequal power balance where your buyer or your market has so much more power than you. Secondly, the sort of the various factors that you're talking about. For example, you've talked about rainfall.
Yes.
Which might raise supply in the places where there was a shortage, hence necessitating this contract in the first place, all those sorts of things.
Yes.
So where do farmers start in terms of walking this journey so that you can knit together this entire scenario that enables you to walk this journey in sustainable fashion?
Look at your activities on your farm as a business.
Yes.
Because that's a game changer. You see, if I go and say I'm going to get stones and construct something, there are things that I have to put in place. You know, is it safe? Is the location safe?
Yes.
So most of us as farmers, when we take up this contract farming, sometimes we've not thought about it as a business. We've thought about it, as I said earlier, as a way of making quick money.
Yes.
And this quick money is basically a way of saying, I will not struggle with the market. So for us, most of us as farmers, contract farming is a secure market.
Yes.
But there are so many other things in between production and market, which then we need to also to consider. Yeah.
So would you say that the market, or so to say this space, the availability of these opportunities is actually there? Are there people who, let's say in the marketplace, who are actually looking to contract farmers to ensure consistent delivery of a certain produce at a certain level?
Yes, they're there. And I can tell you for sure, even just normal onions,
yes,
you can get a contract for onions. The only challenge is now the pricing changes.
Yes.
And then in terms of integrity comes in, because you find that sometimes farmers are under contract,
yes,
but they will sell that produce because there is demand to someone else.
Yes.
Or sometimes the prices has gone low.
Yes.
So the buyers decide to go to a much cheaper farmer who can sell to them produce at a cheaper rate.
Yes.
So there's also an issue of integration. But going back to the previous question you asked, I think it is a responsibility of now the government to be able to formulate policies that can cover both farmer and buyer. And this can only be done if then we have registered farmers. I know it's an issue that farmers we've tried to run away from or fight. I think when farmers have been registered, it means that then your name or your number or your location is somewhere where then you are assigned probably an arbitrator, probably the local extension officer from the county or government to be able to come and right. And then also there are penalties that should be put in case the buyers decide not to buy from you or pick your produce. But also on the part of farmers, did they meet the demand, the quality, and the rest of the things? But also there's something else that we can also think through as farmers is, as we produce this, what are some of these lessons that we're learning? But can we then come together under a body? You know, probably we've seen that in coffee and tea, into cooperatives. So taking farmers back into the cooperatives, it becomes easier. Yes.
So for me then the question is to think about tiers. So for example, if you think about the transport industry, so to say,
yes,
we have people at the top who transport tourists, for example.
Yes.
And we've never seen them touting for tourists. So mostly it's a contract with some service provider who contracted a holiday for someone from Europe, Asia, or some place like that, right? And they signed you on as the guide and driver.
Yes.
And that is definitely a contract.
Yes.
Because you have specific deliverables. These chaps have said they want to see the big five, for example. And you know you're picking them at the airport and delivering them at a hotel and then taking them. So clear deliverables.
Yes.
Below that, we have the sorts of registered bus services that we know. You have the double M's of this world and the rest.
Yes.
And then below that, we have what we'll call the riffraff, the chaos of the matatu industry.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Where it's almost anything goes.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And it's sort of the same thing in the farming space, in agriculture, where we know that in our ecosystem we have large-scale farmers who are mostly contracted by multinationals to supply everything from barley. We've seen more recently sorghum. Below that, the chaos starts. We have fairly large and sometimes small farmers with alleged contracts to supply sugarcane and the attendant chaos. We have farmers who are tied to coffee and tea factories. And there's even laws in place.
Yes.
But we know the chaos around that. We have the people who are trying to do macadamia with the same sorts of challenges where it's still a free for all because there are no real contracts in that space. And then we go to now everyone else who's taking their chance in the market.
Yes.
And a few people, of course, being contracted for things like flowers and other horticultural products that have specific markets. So how do we start formalizing this? How do we start creating the structures that you're saying, especially knowing in mind that our country thrives in chaos for whatever reason? Because, I mean, we can talk about that until the cows come home.
Yes.
But for young people who seriously would want to get into some sort of contract farming, how do you go about it? How do you find your space? How do you find your niche? What are the crops that we are talking about? Where do we start?
You know, I think most of the way you've explained it's true. Contract farming is packaged like the big boys and girls in the industry.
Yes.
You know, you have 200 acres and above and stuff like that.
For some, they even say 3,000.
Yes.
Yes, not less than.
Yes. We have a farmer friend of mine in Machakos here.
Yes.
And he's on 2,000 acres doing cereals rain-fed.
Yes.
And he has his own market. So what I think is the smallholder farmers make up close to 90% of producers across the world. So what happens is these farmers themselves have to come to a certain point and agree that, yes, I am in Kamulu, I'm going to grow onions.
Yes.
My neighbor is growing tomatoes. Can we agree 20 of us to grow onions and control some things? And that is one of the things that made me start what I do. Because after the failed cabbages, we had failed, not the failed crop per se, but more or less market.
Yes.
I had a contract to deliver 14 tons of watermelon to City Park Market.
Yes.
I reached there, and the guy who was there, because we had agreed at 45 shillings per kilo, he decided my watermelons are very good, but he has to manipulate me. So he told me there's a truck that has just come, that came earlier than ours, from Uganda, and it's selling at 12 bob.
Why?
So, that day I became a hawker. So I went with my watermelons across Nairobi.
Yes.
Anyway, that's sorry for another day. So if we come together, so my idea was coming together, having Africa Farmers Club, a group where farmers would meet and talk and share ideas about market. Because the biggest challenge for farmers, apart from the production bit, which they can manage, is the market bit. So the contract farming is packaged as an assured market for your produce.
Yes.
You grow, we will buy. But now who then helps you to make sure that this person will really buy? And what is the commitment? So we find sometimes in the bigger farmers, because they're doing big, you find that the people who are giving them contracts can even deliver either seeds or fertilizer or stuff like that. My father used to be a sugarcane farmer, so I understand the whole
The chaos.
the chaos there.
Yeah.
So these farmers, we have to first of all come together, because the industry, the agriculture industry, every part of the industry operates in silos. So farmers are here on their own. They don't even know the regulations that make up contract farming. And when it comes to contract farming, then there's no education around it. So these farmers then, and that's why I go back to governments, national government and county governments, to take up the responsibility of educating the farmers.
What if they won't? What if it's a case of can't and will not? I'll give you a simple example.
Yes.
Because of all the things you've pointed out, you're essentially pointing out the challenges that are associated with market power, especially created by the flow of information.
Yes.
Whereby we are sitting here today. We all want to eat tomatoes and onions later on at some point in the day. But all we can rely on to give us pricing is walking to the kiosk and asking, unauza nyanya ngapi? How much is this? If she says 30 shillings per, you have no choice. You can walk to the nearest or go to a supermarket or some other vendor, but chances are you'll find the same thing.
Yes.
Behind that person, there's some sort of wholesaler or broker.
Yes.
Who picked that crop from a person like you. Or maybe didn't even pick, was simply facilitated transfer, right?
Yes.
And these people spend a lot of their time gathering market information and thinking about, today I sold this for X amount, so because it's raining, the supply will be more, so I should push the prices down. You know, those sorts of dynamics.
Yes.
So then what then becomes the role first of aggregators and technology? Because the only place where I have seen this system being beaten is in Githongori at Fresher, essentially.
Yes.
I don't think there's any other place in Kenya where we can say there's good governance around a produce that is then taken to market at a price that is not extortionist, and the farmers actually benefit. How do we replicate that model?
So that is the elephant in the room.
Yes.
Because that is the biggest challenge, and that is now one of the things that we do as a farmers. We try and bring this information to farmers. We try and have market prices. We try and bring these farmers close together through farm visits, farm barazas and stuff like that.
Yes.
But also at a much higher level, the conference that is going to happen on 12th and 13th comes in play now. And one of the things that I really loved about the conference that is going to come in is the fact that they've also brought in farmers into the room. Most of the time we have these conferences and it's discussing policy and all that, but not farmers in the room. So a way that we can be able to link these exporters, these people who have these contracts, directly with farmers, so that as much as we have the aggregators, I think aggregators is just is a politer form of word brokers.
Yes.
The aggregators are, or rather brokers, are unnecessary. They are a necessary evil.
Yes.
They are there for a certain purpose, because I might not have the transportation to take to market. I might not have, I might have market, but I don't have transport.
Yes.
And you know, transport takes around 40% of the cost.
Yes.
So I think it is an education thing, but also a regulation thing, where then I know that if I went and picked produce from a farmer and I didn't pay, it is wrong. I've seen a model in South Africa and Botswana where farmers take their produce to like an open market, like Marikiti, and the produce is auctioned as whether fruits, maize, whatever it is. And when you are there as a farmer, you deliver, you are told this is what we are buying at. Is it okay? Then you take, fine. You get you go with part of your money. The rest that you haven't managed to sell, you'll be called probably a day or two later and asked, we've got this price. Can you take?
Are you taking it? Yes.
A week later, you have money in your account. So I think it has to be something that is intentional. You've mentioned something that you said probably it's a can't and won't kind of scenario. And that's where now for us as private sector, we are coming in to see how can we support farmers. We are doing it at a smaller scale, but now we start partnering with the organizers of such a conference and seeing what happens next post the conference becomes a game changer.
But we're talking about sectors where these same challenges occur. But even when the goods are not perishable, but where there is need, for example, I've seen pastoralists work and team build with their livestock for 2, 3, 4 years. You fatten, get it bed out, you have to sell all of a sudden. But even during normal times, when you go to sell, it's one of two things. You either have to wait for the aggregator to come around in a truck and say how much is offering for your livestock, or you have to go to one of the places where we have the slaughterhouses in the environment, right?
Yes.
And these guys will tell you tunanunua na X and then walk away. It's a take it or leave it sort of thing. So essentially, again, this power dynamic, even in very different industries where we're not dealing with veggies.
You know, farming is, and I'll say, this is one of my favorite statements, farming is like marriage. It's not for everyone. So not everyone in it is meant for it.
Yes.
Not everybody who is actually doing it is farming. Some of us are doing it because we have land.
Yes.
Some of us because we think it can make money. But when you're doing it as a business, there's so many things that you have to put in place for you to make sure that you're successful. And if you look at it, the pharmaceutical world,
Yes.
there's regulation from start to end. In case something happens in a clinic or even a chemist, there's regulation there. In the agriculture sector, there's none. So those are the things I'm saying. Both farmers have to do something, and the government has to do something, as well as now private sector has to make sure that we sit down in a room and agree this is what we want to deliver. But there's also the importance of technology that you can start thinking of. I see most farmers are desperate because, number one, they don't even have storage facilities. You know, they don't know if I harvest my tomatoes, where will I store them? So we become very desperate and sell to the next buyer. Then everything has also been set for farmers. All the prices have been set for farmers. Everything from tractor cost, labor cost, all this, including the buying price.
Yes.
So there must be some formula that we have to sit and agree. And one of the sessions in the conference will be talking about in fact, one of the first session I'll be moderating is talking to farmers directly and understanding what is this thing that, where did you burn your fingers? Is it on your own, or is it something that, an external force that happened here?
Even as we proceed to a short commercial break, let's say in 1 or 2 minutes, the question for a lot of people is taking control of their situation such that they can then manage the factors that influence the outcomes of their ventures. and the information being one of them, of course, the knowledge about the market and that sort of thing, but also things like input costs. We have things like the climate, the weather, and the changes that we are seeing and that sort of thing. So for me, paint a picture quickly for us of where farmers then need to start once they've identified what they want to do. Then to try and figure out how they're going to control these vagaries of, for example, whether I've seen people say, I'll give you 3,000 acres of barley. 3 months later, that stuff is turning purple and then pink and then brown in the shamba.
Yes. You know, when I talk about the role farmers have is very powerful.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, we also need to ask ourselves some things. For example, we have onions selling now at 25 shillings. 5 months ago, onions were selling at even 200 shillings.
Yes.
But it's because there's onions coming in from our Tanzanian farmers. So is there a way that we can now make sure that that is stopped? Because whether the inputs are high or not, if somebody is bringing cheaper produce that has not been regulated, then it beats the purpose.
I want you to hold that thought. I want us to go on that break. But when we come back, we'll look at protectionism, because that is what essentially you're talking about. Its place in this space, protecting farmers. But of course, also the fact that some of those might actually be Kenyans out there who are doing this thing and then reporting that again. That in a couple of minutes. Let's go to that short commercial break. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes here on Farm Kenya.